In 1996, another light topic, Hamlet.
Uh-huh.
You know, um, a similar kind of thing we were talking about. Much ado about nothing. Here we're in the middle of, as you are, so dialogue heavy. Just the content which comes from the theatrical world, the stage
Hmm.
theatrical world, and we're in the middle of this to be or not to be. Which how many people have tried to reinvent those very few words. So let's
Well,
just take a quick look at this. And one of the things that strikes me, not too dissimilar from the last one, is um, perhaps I don't know what you were going through during the spotting session or during the composition creativity, but where you decided to start the music. I mean, this is a very, very heavy scene, and
mhm.
it's one of the most famous scenes in all of artistry. I mean,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
artistry.
To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them, to die, to sleep, no more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come, when we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin? Who would fardels bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveller returns, puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of. Thus, conscience doth make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pith and moment with this regard, their currents turn awry and lose the name of action.
The scene itself is already so heavy, and in my reaction the first time I ever saw this years ago and heard this years ago was this almost kind of dancing around the dialogue a little bit. It feels like you're kind of just punctuating in very delicate ways what he's doing
Yeah,
here, and I don't
yeah.
I don't know what you were of course thinking here or going through. We'd love to hear that, and but it's almost like you were coming up with musical words, and you put a
Yeah.
word
Well,
here and you
well,
put a
what it
word
is,
there.
you're very right, but you in your introduction that number one, we sat down and had a chat before we spotted the picture, and Ken and I, and last year I really don't know what to do. I don't want to do. I don't want to write too much music for this. It's a 4-hour full unabridged version. Um, I don't want to, shower it with smother it with music. And this great writing is such a long statement, the entire play. It's just the whole thing has become very different from the abridged versions that we fly through for Much Ado. It's all action, but this is this great tome of a piece. I really am not sure what to do. So I knew there would be so much head music, as I call it, internal head music throughout the play. You know, the stabbing of his father, and the ghost, and Hamlet. Of course, Hamlet is completely going insane and crazy at times, and with anger and frustration and grief for his father, and is he pretending he's mad, or is he really mad? This is the age-old question. And this speech, of course, looms ahead, as you say, is such a iconic aria, such an iconic piece that every country in the world, of course, has translated these extraordinary pieces of work. When I first I thought I don't want to write any music to this at all, because so much of the film is left to the music of the words and to the wonderful performances. So I watched it for a long time, and I kept hearing something. I thought this I feel some music is needed here, but it's got to be so sparse and so sparing. It has to just, as you say, dance in there, and shouldn't get in the way, but in fact, it should just bring the audience, as a camera, as he get nearer and nearer the mirror, the two-way mirror, the audience. I wanted to draw them more and more into this really incredibly sort of complex piece of writing. And that's the thing about these plays, is you're not leading people by the nose, but you're helping people into this incredible language from a long time ago, which anything that helps the audience to really be enveloped by these amazing words. And Ken is doing an extraordinary job, of course. So I felt when the music had to be primitive, because it's an age-old, ancient thought of human beings. Why are we here? Where do we come from? What happens when we leave this mortal coil? And these voices that come occasionally like little comets that fly through time. And that I had this idea of, literally, you look up to the stars and you think, why are we here? You know, these little kind of comets. And that also gave a sense of other world and from a time gone by. And that, the ancient horn, just a little horn comes in. I thought, what are the two oldest forms of music you would have? The human voice and a horn from an animal. Someone blows a horn, you know, or someone would hit. So someone would hit something. So the first human beings would hear a rhythm, and then someone discovered blowing a horn, the human voice. So these three elements. Well, I thought, let's use them, and also the melody, da 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 dee da 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 dee da. This is Hamlet's theme. So I placed this theme. I go da do da do la dee do. I actually play that tune throughout different octaves, up and down and jumping everywhere. So if you actually piece it together, it's actually Hamlet's main theme, placed all over randomly, like random notes in his head.
Yeah.
So, the music entering, for me, it's just the terror of everything's so bad in the world. I've had enough of this. I want to end it all. But for in that sleep of death, what dreams may come.
Right.
What happens when you're there? Oh my God, is it worse than this? When we have shuffled off this mortal coil, is it worse than this? Oh my God, so I'm stuck with this. I'm questioning everything I have to deal with. People being just people making your life unhappy, and are people letting you down, or the world's caving in around you, and why are we here? And so these are all the thoughts that fly through your head as an individual when you read it, and then when you watch Ken's performance. It's so underplayed and so quiet and internal that the music certainly couldn't be anything other than that. So
Well,
I hope that helps.
well, it's interesting that when you have an opportunity as a composer to react to such serious content, but in this case, it's not just serious content, right? It's content that most of the Western world is aware of in some kind of previous version, right? And
Sure.
and so that in itself is an interesting challenge to kind of grapple with because
Yeah.
from an actor's perspective, a composer's perspective, a writer's perspective, when you're dealing with content that the collective culture is already aware of,
Sure.
there's this other element of what do you do with it in a way that we can help tell the story that was intended, but at the same time, how do we give it something else?
Uh-huh.
And certainly this scene does that. It's one of those. I mean, I think it's a great opportunity as an artist. I mean, what was it? Did it kind of generate a little bit of intrepidation or fear in you as an artist when you had to approach this?
Well, I'm always anxious when I embark on any picture because it's
Yeah.
I want to do my best. But it's particularly when um, you're working on a Shakespeare adaptation because,
Hmm.
as you say, he has been translated into virtually every language on the planet. So there is a tremendous onus on you to in paying homage to it that you pull out your very best work or the very best taste. You apply your very best taste to this. Um, but Ken always says, look, there's no point because I've obviously would voice my concerns and say, oh my God, what am I to do here? This is such, it's such a daunting process every time with these great words. And he says, well, all you can do is help the audience to enter into the world. And
Hmm.
that's all you're doing. Hopefully you're assisting the audience. You're saying, look, I think they mean this. You're helping to clarify this incredibly dense and complex philosophical language. And also to capture the wonderful meter in it. If it's well rendered by the actor, if it's a wonderful rendition of the speech, it's great to catch the wonderful
Right.
music and great acting performances. And ultimately, as a composer in the film, the two things drive it: the narrative and the performances.
Hmm.
And if there's weaknesses in either department, then you're in trouble. And if you've got a great story and great actors, then you have no excuse. Your job is to make them greater and make this work greater. Your
Mm.
job is you're the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
So
That's
my job
interesting.
was not to get in the way of this, but just to add a bit of atmosphere and just an audio experience around it, that just to listen to present as hopefully as unobtrusive as possible. Look how marvelous this is, as opposed to listen to my great music or whatever. It's this is how extraordinary. And this
Yep.
is me just saying, yes, you can understand this. Yes, this is very accessible. This is not something which is intellectual. The intellectual that has intellectual ownership, sole ownership. You are welcome to join the club. Uh,
Yeah.
because these great plays have been sort of lacerated by the elite, and you know the average person in Shakespeare's London came and saw these great plays. It
Right.
wasn't just
Right.
fine coats and top hats and tails. Um, Everyone came and saw these great works. It's just been lacerated
Yeah.
to a large degree by the elite, and um, so this is Ken's done a wonderful job and he's been criticised by a certain section of the intelligentsia. Oh, you've dumbed it down. I disagree. He's actually opened so many people's eyes to
Yeah.
this extraordinary world and extraordinary language and great genius.
It's true. there's a challenge, there's a barrier in getting into the world of Shakespeare. I mean, I adore Shakespeare, and so many of us can say the same. But there is a barrier, and once you get past that barrier, at least in my experience, it was like the floodgate opened, and I was able to feel it and understand it in a different way, and it's an important barrier to get past with this particular context. To kind of pivot outside the world of Shakespeare, the following year, we're now in 1997. And this is, without hesitation, I can say this, one of my favorite mobster movies of all time. And one of the reasons why I love this movie so much is because of how you approached it with the music. I mean, for me, it's impossible to separate music from film. It's one of the things that I fell in love with when I was a young boy. And every time I see a movie, I'm always kind of looking through the lens of music. And, certainly cinematography and acting, but music is one of the things that I pay such great attention to. And the music in this film, it uplifted it in a way that brought so much more tragedy and appreciation to the content. And the next two pictures we'll look at, the first one, of course, I'm speaking of Donnie Brasco, directed by Mike Newell. And the connection there, of course, is that you worked together years later on Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
Yeah.
Another incredible collaboration. So let's have a look at this scene from Donnie Brasco. And this is one of the most illuminating scenes for me in the whole movie because it's intimate, it's fragile, it's exposed. It speaks to this very fragile relationship between Donnie and his wife, played by Anne Heche. And in this moment, the music helps us to realize just how horrible the implications are of him being so deep into his role in the FBI and what it's doing to his life. And I love this scene in so many ways. Let's have a look and listen.
Did you ever once ask yourself how I make it through my days? I pretend I'm a widow with medals and scrapbooks and memories. I pretend you're dead. That's how my life makes sense to me. Just go away. Stay away. God, why do you hate me when I love you so much?
You think I hate you? I don't hate you. This job is eating me alive. I can't breathe anymore. And if I come out, this guy Lefty dies. They're gonna kill him because he vouched for me, because he stood up for me. I live with that every day. That's the same thing as if I put the bullet in his head myself, you understand? I spent all these years trying to be the good guy, the man in the white fucking hat. For what? For nothing. I'm not becoming like them, Maggie. I am them.
This is, to put it lightly, an incredibly beautiful scene. The moment you decide to bring in the music, this can almost 2 or 3 bar interlude before we get, of course, one of the, I don't know if you call it the main title of the film, but certainly one of the main melodies of the film. This is a scene for me as a fan and as a viewer and a listener. It's hard to put words to this one. And that primarily is one of the reasons why I react so amazingly to it, is because the music is so perfect here. It does what I think perhaps film music really should do primarily, is to find that emotional core and just twist it. And it's done so perfectly here. I mean, how did you react to this film when you first saw it? How did you react to this scene when you first saw it? It's an amazing piece of art. All of this film, all of this music, it really is.
Yeah. Oh yes. It's, Mike is a highly intelligent and at this point an extremely experienced director and very underestimated, I think, as a director. I mean, he has received many plaudits as ever so throughout his career, but still, I think he is an extraordinary talent and still working. And just recently, he directs a picture. Not sure what he's working on at the moment. But, he's now well into his 70s and he's still as passionate, and he's huge, like physically, and a huge personality. And he was very loyal to me. Has been very loyal to me, but we're still very good friends. And we were through the war together. Because these pictures are not easy. These concepts are not easy. And if you're passionate, which he is, and I'm passionate, because you're passionate about great performances, you're passionate about writing. That's great writing. And it's great acting. It's wonderful American acting, as I call it. It's so underplayed. It's so laden with emotional turmoil and despair. You know, she says, "Why do you hate me when I love you so much?" It's just like that. I mean, if you're at the receiving end of that, it's just a knife in your gut, because you're torn between this obsession with this job and being sucked into it, and his relationship with Lefty. He's sort of almost fallen in love with Lefty as a good person. He's fallen in love with this good person who's has a huge heart and is naive and is treating Johnny like a son. Maybe he's his son he never had. Or the father he's never had, or he's the son he never had, or that kind of son, and being sucked into this underworld. All that is the sort of backstory. And then this poor woman who's at home, an FBI sort of widow. What, I'm getting nothing from you. It's all one-sided, and I've lost you. But this is the main theme. But also, if this, coming from a singing background, whenever I can, and I've been given great opportunities to write a melody. And the pace of it, da dee da da dee da dee do do da dee ya bo do dee. It's very slow. Da dee da ya dee dee. There's a lot of suspensions and extended passing notes in it, to be a bit technical.
And at its highest point in the melody, interestingly enough, where you kind of go outside, is the moment he says, "I am them."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the climax to that's the aria. So that's the climax to the aria, and there's a sort of there's a chord sequence, a descending chord sequence that surprises you and takes you somewhere else. Dee da da dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da dee da. It's just I really like this descending. It's almost as if it's all collapsing again. You know, so.
Yeah.
When you're writing a melody, it's almost like you call it Shinaw singing in Ireland. When you're singing it's like a mountain. The unaccompanied singing in Ireland and Scotland, when someone's singing a great song, a great melody like Danny Boy, it has maybe 3 different levels before it's like climbing a mountain. You know, da 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 ya. You know, Danny Boy, that big
right.
Big crescendo at the end. So it has, it has Shinaw singing that has, you can literally draw a graph where it reaches up and comes down, and then up and down, and then up to the very top and comes down in 3 pieces again. So you've got a little mountain, and that's that's technically what happens in these ancient songs that are passed on orally, and that's what that melody does. It's building and building, and it reaches its peak, like an aria. And if you take the if you take it away from the performances, that I would like to put words to this day. I'd like to put words to that. That would be a little song in itself. And it's like Schubert. When Schubert, if you study Schubert, which I know you have, and I have a great deal, even his harmonies and accompaniments were melodies.
Yeah.
He would never write a phrase without that phrase being a little melody on its own. And I learned so much from him. And this is pointed out to me by my very first school teacher. Even that, unlike any other composer, his accompaniments were, you could take the melody away and you had another tune going on, another little accompaniment that stands on its own proudly.
Right.
As a little different type of melody, but nevertheless. So I think all these thoughts go through my head subconsciously, not consciously. But again, what drives that is fabulous performances, great story, wonderful moment at the right point in the picture. Your job is just to envelop that, like you're hugging them. The music hugs them. So, and I call it breaking through the embryo without being too pretentious about it. When you break in, I'm actually in that scene. I'm in that room with them.
Right.
And I'm feeling that. And I think as a composer, if you really feel what they're going through, then hopefully that is transmitted.
Brought to you by Cine Concerts.